Yo, what's up, guys? It's Dion Brown here, and you are watching and or listening to Man versus Brand. All right, so you know how you always hear about the connection between mind, body, and soul? Well, I don't know if I've always believed that, but I think that that's the benefit of youth, right? Is that when you're young, you're really focused on the mind, right? You're learning. When you hit those sort of teen years, those early 20s, man, you're focused on the body. Those hormones are going. Right. And then as you get older, you start to realize that there's more than just mind, body, that there also may be, in fact, spirit. When we look at the correlation between our mind and our body, we can oftentimes attribute that to our central nervous system, right? That's the part of your body that connects your brain with your spinal cord, is sending signals all over the place. It might help you to sleep better, might help you to focus more, might cause you tremendous amounts of pain and discomfort. So I figured, what better person to have a conversation about the correlation between mind, body, and soul than Dr. Victor Manzo Jr., who also goes by Dr. Vic. Now, tell you a little bit about him. Certified pediatric chiropractor, speaker, author, podcaster, mindset coach. My man is multi-hyphened. So I figure if anyone can tell me if an adjustment to my back can actually give me Einsteinian thought, then it's this guy right here. So if you want to talk mindset, you want to talk the body, you want to talk about enlightenment, then this is the episode for you. So Dr. Vic, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Say hello.
Thanks for having me on, brother. Yeah, I've been a chiropractor for the last 12 years. I practice and I come from a place of what I call 1900 chiropractic. We'll probably get into that. And then I've been a business coach for the last 3.5 years. And I just went full time this year doing coaching, where I kind of I'm originally from Chicago, and just moved to Knoxville, Tennessee last November. And in that process, we let the office go and went into full-time coaching. So that's kind of a little bit about me and what I'm up to in these days.
All right, cool. So in the intro, I said that there's this sort of correlation, right, in how we function as human beings, where there is these cross sections of healthiness, right? Mental, emotional healthiness, physical healthiness, spiritual healthiness, right? So how much of your previous work in full-time chiropractic medicine helped to sort of inform a lot of your conversations that you're doing now in coaching?
Oh, it's a lot. I mean, chiropractic's a holistic approach. Chiropractic doesn't treat any illness, condition, symptom, or disease. It's a way of helping an individual adapt to their environment. And yet, in my coaching, the approach, like when someone comes to me for coaching, it's never like in chiropractic. Somebody comes into my office, maybe be a kiddo with ADHD or an infant not sleeping well or an adult has pain. It's never usually the problem. It's not the main cause, right? In business coaching, it's the same thing. I need new leads. I need new prospects. I need this. I need that. That's not your problem. I may not say that up front like that, but as we get into the work, they'll realize, crap, that's not really what the issue was. It's something else. And there's always these root causes where things come from. And from a business coaching side, from a mindset perspective, it's usually the subconscious. You're not aware of it. We think this is what it is, but really it's something deeper that's underlying. And in chiropractic, it's the same thing. Whatever's showing up is never usually the issue, unless it's a traumatic injury. There's always something deeper underlying that allowed for that to happen eventually down the road.
So I am a fairly newcomer, probably within the last maybe 7 years to holistic medicine, of which getting chiropractic work has been a part of it. A main source has in fact been um, doing like some sort of uh, massage therapy and or acupuncture. And it's funny in both, right? Like there's very few questions asked, right? It's not very sort of deeply probing into what's wrong. There's some general questions, there's a feel for it, and then there's this activity that happens, right? And while you're doing it, you're watching this chart of how everything connects to one another. And you realize that you are not only asking someone to treat you today, but you're asking someone to treat you with this kind of historic understanding of the body, this kind of long-standing understanding of the way that pain, your body, your mind, um, key points in the body, all connect to one another in order for you to walk away feeling better about the experience, right? Whatever your aim was going in, usually come out. The other thing that I think is also interesting in what I've learned is that it's also not like a one-time thing, right? Where I think a lot of Western medicine, it's like, I just want to take a pill and I want to wait 30 minutes and I want to feel better. I want to do this thing. I want to wait an hour and I want to feel better. I want to do it one time a day. I want to create a routine around it. And that's going to be that. And you find that in other spaces that there tends to be more of a long-standing lifestyle approach as opposed to a take this one thing and it'll solve everything. And I imagine in some ways that's your approach. I'm a business coach also, but I imagine that's your approach to business coaching, right? It's like it's not just going to look at the one thing that you're pointing to and say that's the solution. We're going to look at a holistic approach and figure out and uncover what's going on, and then have some conversations about that using some best practices and some long-standing ideas around how to run a business.
Yeah, no, it's totally. I mean, it's always. I always find it interesting with the crossovers and correlations from chiropractic to business coaching to how it's one of those things where there's stuff we have to clear out. Like sometimes people come to me because that's why I call myself a business and spiritual mindset coach, because when I was just a business coach, business mindset coach, people are like, great, let me talk about I need to grow my business. What marketing things can I do? What this can I do here? What's this? And I'm like, whoa, we're not going to get into that yet. Like there's other things I have to address before we even go to that part. And they're just like, hold on, but you're a business coach. So I'm like, I am a business coach, but I have a certain process of what I do. And I'm going to look at things a little different than what you normally hear about. And so that's why I was like, I got to let them know there's a spiritual side to this, because that's what I'm really working on. And then from that, we can create those things. But it's like you're saying in chiropractic, it is not a one-stop shop. It's not a one thing. Health is always a continuum. It's a journey. It's not a destination. That's health in all aspects, not just chiropractic. That's also how you eat, how you move, how you think, how you sleep. Medicine wise, when you're getting something that's a treatment based thing, I mean, that's what we call sick care in our world, because it's you're not taking care of the problem. You have a fire, the fire alarm's off. You're just either taking the batteries out, you're cutting the wire. It's like an oil light showing up on your car. You're just putting tape over it. The issue's still there. It never got solved. You feel better. You think it's better. If you live with the five senses, you're going to think you feel better. But nothing has been changed. Nothing has been corrected. Nothing to that nature.
Got it. So talk to me about being a spiritual business coach. I know spiritual coaches. I know life coaches. I know business coaches. I know individuals that intersect their disciplines in a way that allows for there to be a more well-rounded approach. addressing the individual and the business, or the employees and the business, the team and the business. But give me your take on the cross section of spiritual and business.
Yeah, I mean, everything in life is a vibration. Everything's energy at the end of the day, right? And so I incorporate a lot of quantum physics in my stuff when it comes to that. That's the science side of it. So my science side of what I share is always going to be universal laws, neuroscience, and quantum physics for the most part. And what I look at and what I share and teach my clients is all about understanding vibration is all things. You know, Nikola Tesla said, if we look at the universe in the terms of frequency, energy, and vibration, humanity will expand. I'm exaggerating here. Like in 1 year, it'll be what we do in 1 year, what we did like in 10. And so when you understand that approach, we start to understand that from an aspect that in the quantum aspect, everything is attracted to us. So spirituality is just really expressing your truth, what matters most to you from a soul perspective. That's how I take it from a spiritual aspect. And how do I help individuals truly lead more fulfilled life when it comes to those things? Now, in terms of business, well, again, everything's vibration at the end of the day. So it's one of those things where when they are focusing on things that really matter to them in some way, shape, or form, something that's really deep to their heart, and they understand the why behind it. Now, in business terms, there's stuff that we go through. There's business stuff that, you hear out in mainstream that they talk about these things. But when we can really hone on that, the difference of how the spiritual side comes in more with the business is that I help individuals become more successful with and achieve their dream life achieve their dream life effortlessly. There's no effort really put in. There's very little. Now, when I say that, some people in the business world get a knee-jerk reaction and be like, this guy's selling snake oil. But you have to understand there is action that is taken, but it's called the law of inspired action. You are inspired to take action when you feel like it's time to take action, instead of what we're taught in business is to, I have to take action. I have to do all these things. I have to keep through. These are the numbers. Here's the game. This is how it is. And I just got to keep playing and grinding and grinding and hustling and grinding and hustling. And then eventually at some point, somewhere in my career, I'm going to hit the mark and I'm going to be successful. This approach is a little different. It's more Eastern based, which is like, instead of doing all the force, just focus on vibe and the things when you need to, the ideas, the circumstances, situations, the people, whatever that is going to attract towards you. And that's what quantum's showing. That's what universal laws prove. This is what ancient wisdom talks about. It brings spiritual truths in. So I do bring in stuff from like maybe the Bible or the Hindu scriptures or maybe Buddhism or Taoism. And I'll just be like, here's been shared here. But then I bring the science in too. So that way I'm tying it together and bridging that gap. So that's kind of how I approach it in that way, how I merge the two.
Okay. So in my mind, that works for an individual, right? How does that methodology expand into a team or a business where there are different personalities, different desires, different drivers, where the representation of leadership everyone else may align to, but it doesn't mean that everyone is driven by those same ideas, right? So I'm vibrating in this frequency, another person is vibrating in a different frequency. Doesn't mean that we're not on the same wavelength. It just means that we're what we apply our energy toward and why we apply our energy toward it may possibly be different. So how does this work when you're looking at a group versus an individual?
Yeah, so this is where it changes a little bit. Still the same stuff to a certain degree. There are some tweaks though, because then it's like one of the things I work with anyone who works with me is always about vision and vision for their life and all these other things. So that's a micro level. Macro level with teams is you have to have a vision. What's the vision of the company? What's the culture of the company? What are the things that they want to achieve? Why is the purpose of the company exist? And then it's the alignment of the team from a mindset perspective, like focus is all in alignment to why we do what we do. Here's the purposes of why. Here's the reasons of the deal levels. Now, is everybody going to be like, yeah, this is why we do this? I'm so fired up about that. Some may not. But at the end of the day, leadership has to come from that place to lead by example. by always making sure they're in line with the vision of how the company wants to move forward, the culture, what's the values of things. These are all things that come into alignment. It's still energy at the end of the day, because when you're holding yourself to values that matter and you share that into a company as a leader, then the people underneath, as long as you're helping them, I can go a couple ways with this, but I'll just keep it this way. So when you can do that, then all of a sudden the vibes are going to be higher because people are being more congruent together as a cohesive unit. It's like when I managed my chiropractic office and I had 6-7 employees. I mean, not everyone's going to be fired up like I'm going to be about when I'm in the office. But I had to somehow connect with my employees to have them see the bigger vision of why we exist as an office. And it was with our meetings, always having the reminders, celebrating the victories when we had them. Here's our why. Here's why we exist. Look what happened today. Look at this great story. What was great today that got you excited today? We are always asking at the end of the day, what's good today? So we can focus always on the positive and remember why we're here in this office and what matters most. And doing those things, I think sometimes just when that alone, when you have that much energy all centered to one area, it's like a laser. And all of a sudden, when it's pinpoint to something, it just makes it a lot easier to move forward and achieve the goals that you want to achieve as a whole entire company.
Interesting point. I agree with a lot of the theory. I think, though, there is a reconciliation when you're talking about shifts possibly in culture, shifts in prioritization based on leadership, right? Like there's a whole bunch of people that really like the old value system, the old way that we approached it, right? And you, Dr. Big, you're like, okay, now we're going to laser focus it over here. And, now it's going to be easier for everyone to get there. But people struggle with change inherently, right? And so when you shift culture, even in a positive way, there are people that will automatically get on board. Those are people that typically will get on board with almost anything. That's their personality type. That's their disposition. There are people that will get on board because it logically or financially makes sense. Like we're going to hit, this is our goal in terms of our numbers. This is how this will affect your bonus structure. Great. If that's the direction, sign me up. I'm here for it, right? Then there are sort of the folks that oftentimes I believe are rooted in family. I'm gonna generalize it as family. They like the way things are. They like the structure. They like the community. They like the lunches at this time. They like the Christmas events at this time. They like being able to talk to Susan in accounting and have the conversation, because so much of what is valuable to them is this existing infrastructure. And any change to that existing infrastructure creates anxiety, creates fear, creates resistance. So how are you preparing your clients, or how are you even positioning your methodology to account for the fact that there may be well-intending people whose learning curve to the culture, to the change, to the shift may be longer, but they're not in opposition to it. They just take a while. I think if you've ever been a part of a merger, if you've ever been a part of a shift, anything like that, that like there's a whole, if you put a comment box and you go, what's going on here? There's a group of individuals that are invested in the company, but they're also invested in keeping what they believe the value system the same.
Yeah, there's one of the things I've done, and I've done this in my own office, and I recommend some of these to my clients when they have teams, is depending on how big their team is and so forth, is, we have always done personality tests so we know from a communication standpoint, right? Because the people you're talking about that don't like to change, those are sensitive types. We use a DISC personality because it's the easiest and most simple thing to do. And so those individuals, then we knew that we have to walk them through that, right? What's their values, right? What do they enjoy, right? It's kind of connecting to values to each employee. And being able to have that conversation so we link to their values. So when we make a shift, because I've had a few of those individuals who don't like change. They just want to keep things the same old way it was, and let's just keep it that way. I'm a guy who's always on the search for what can we do to improve and expand and evolve. And there's always changes coming with that. And it's one of those things where we approach them in a way to where we, talk about them. We ask them, for me, it was as simple as just asking questions. I don't have like a scheme of questions I ask. I'm more of a feeler. So I feel where people are. I ask a question. I feel how they respond. I'm paying attention to body language and tone. And that's going to give me the information to know how I need to address it. But it's one of those things where for clients and stuff, when I have actually a client right now that we're working with their team, and it ended up being like the one you're mentioning is all of them. Their whole team is that type where it's hard to make changes. So I'm like, you're going to have to talk in a softer tone. You have to connect with them. You have to understand what are the things they're going to have resistance to. Most of the time, they may not want to even bring it up because it feels like a conflict. They're not going to. And they may just try to say they go along with it, but they may not. But it's if you can connect to what their values are, and then you can make that easy adjustment, how to link those two, then all of a sudden that is going to smooth that transition over a little bit.
Absolutely. All right. So for the folks that don't know, the DISC assessment stands for dominance, influence, steadiness, conscientiousness. It's a study. I'm a high D, high I, semi-high C, which was a running joke in every organization that I was in. And I'm pretty consistent across the board. Your IDs tend to be, the leaders tend to be the visionaries. The I's tend to be the folks that can influence and move culture. Typically, the people that are putting teams together, successfully helping them move. That might be your project managers. Your S's, they tend to be like your accountants, the folks that you just are trustworthy. They're there. They're always gonna, do what needs to be done. And your C's are going to be like your admins, right? They're always going to think about the next step. They're always going to think about the next thing that needs to happen. They're the reminders of the birthday parties, right? They're the people that are really focused on ensuring and being the stewards of culture. So DISC assessment is something I 100% believe in. I think that it's super important. Not only to your points, Vic, about learning about someone, but also learning their style in a team and the best way to manage that person, like how to approach that person, and in the ways that they interpret information and share information, like you said, in communication. And so 100% agree with you, man, that I think that if you don't do an assessment, if you're fast to hire, that it's gonna, at the end, you're gonna feel the pain points of not knowing who you're getting in business with. All right, cool. So that's how we get the slow movers on board. Now, what about the other side of this spectrum, right? The visionary entrepreneur, right? You tell them, listen, I'm gonna hit you with some quantum physics. I'm gonna hit you with some mindset. Now all of a sudden, my man is reading L. Ron Hubbard. He is now quoting Art of War. The person has taken what you've given them and moved forward. If anyone knows a solid entrepreneur, then they know that it is very easy to go from like, oh, that sounds like a really good idea, to like the entire company's doing standing 4-minute meetings every day because that creates good vibrations. And all of a sudden there's all this company change that you might not have insinuated that should happen, but just because of the nature of entrepreneurs, they tend to take things and move forward with them very quickly. So how do you manage someone who is using your coaching, but maybe sort of using it in a way that might be moving faster than what the company needs to go in order for that company to buy in, and for them to get the necessary wins for them to shift the company into the direction that it needs to go?
Is this the leader we're talking about of the company?
Yeah, man. When all of a sudden, like all the chairs in the offices are gone because sitting, doesn't create and stimulate brain waves. All of a sudden, the person is doing a book club that no one wants to do at 7 a.m. They're reading Miracle Morning now at 7 a.m. and making everyone come in, and they're so stoked, they're so excited for this new approach that it's almost moving faster than what the company has the threshold to take in terms of shifting. So how do you deal with that, or have you dealt with anything like that?
I have. I mean, it's one of those things, it's like an old licensed clinical social worker used to tell me all the time. This is one of his principles he taught. Slow down, play it safe. And what that meant was, I mean, as simple as that sounds, you think, okay, great, got it. But there's a lot deeper meaning into that. But it's one of those things you have to feel where as drivers, most entrepreneurs are drivers, high D's. So they're just, let's go, give me the short, quick answer to this. Let me move forward. That's what I want, right? So as soon as they like something, I'm going, right? And you have to remember, not everybody's like you. So you got to take that step back, slow it down, and slowly increment one little thing at a time. And that's hard for high D's because I'm not a high D, I'm balanced, but but when I do make decisions, I want to go move forward with it also. And it's one of those things you just got to take that step back and assess things, and then just introduce it little. Here's why what we're going to do it, because you want to communicate. It all comes down to communication at the end of the day. A lot of things I teach are very simple to do, because remember, you got a D, you got an I, you got an S, and you got a C, and there's blends between each of those and all those other things. Communicate in ways that you can hit all of them. It's not, because a D wants the information as quick as possible, but the S, you're gonna have to slowly bring that on. The C is gonna be the analytical one. I want to know all the steps. Why is this important? Why is this important? Where's the research behind it? I want to know this X, Y, Z. Show me everything on how this is going to help us and benefit us and all those things. The I is going to be like, well, if it's fun and exciting, then I'm all in. Let's do this. If not, I need to see somehow this is going to be fun and interactive in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So when you know that, comes down to communication, you hit every single one of them. The D's, you can be like, I mean, sometimes I'm like, here's a straight point to it, and that's okay. Cover the D's. All right, why are we going to do this? It's going to be fun. Look at the response we're going to have from here. This is going to be fun and exciting. All right, got the I's. For other ones, it may be a change that we may not want, maybe something that's new. And I know it can be a little uncomfortable at times, but, here's what we can do to help with that process. And we're going to take one thing at a time. So you're not just throwing the whole boat, right? You've done morning mirror. We're going to do 7 in the morning. We're going to do a book club. We're going to do standing desk, all these other things. Just do one at a time, because the S's are going to take a little longer to transition. And the C's want to know some of the research behind it. And I think that's one of the things, because as I used to do disc profiles, even on patients, because I wanted to know how I needed to communicate with them. But then I just got to a point where I'm like, I'm just going to communicate with them, and I'll pick up on in the first 5 minutes. I'll know who they are and what kind of where they categorize it. But before, even before I did that, I would speak very general in ways where I would ask questions to figure it out. So I'd be like, if they're a driver, I can tell, because they're kind of be like, okay, great. Yep. That sounds good. Yep. And I'd be like, okay, I got a driver on my hands. So let me shorten it up. Let me go a little faster. But then I would also ask questions like, do you want me to go deeper into what the scans tell, or the way I did testing? And this, sometimes I work with the clients, depending on what industry you're in. Again, it just depends on each situation. So I don't usually, but that's kind of the basics of where one of the simple tricks I usually recommend is just communicate when you assess that you're addressing to all of them, if you can.
Got it. All right, cool. So there's a universe where we're all in business, we're in community, there's harmony, we are profitable businesses, right? And then in that space, we're now adding new vendors, we're getting new lawyers, new accountants, new tax preparers. We are launching into new segments of business. How does this philosophy then translate to those that are outside of the company? Those that are not, sort of stakeholders that are there. Those are folks that, are either going to buy our product or service, and we're now articulating the shift, or they're people that we're deciding to be in business with that are outside of the company. Like, are we Are we discussing our value system and our approach, and then feeling them out for how they respond to it? Are we assuming that we're going to do business, and there'll be a trial run where we'll start to see if they align with our mission and our value system and how we approach business? Like, how does that happen? Because oftentimes, when you're looking at, when you need coaching, you oftentimes are making adjustments, and those adjustments can then affect those that are outside of the company.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I teach in my coaching with everybody is getting out of our head and getting back into our body. So when we're looking at, like, do I need to do trial and error? Do I need to do this? Do I need to figure that out? That's all head. And what I try to share and what I try to teach is how to get back into this body. Our body is the most advanced technological thing that's out there. And it's one of those things, you can use this as a tool to be a guidance. Some people call this intuition, but there's, and some people go, that's what, business world, they're very headstrong. So they're like, oh, that's that crazy woo-woo stuff. Well, what if I said neuropeptides? Because that's the same thing. It's a physiological response. Neurals, nerves, and peptides is a protein that creates a response, emotional response from the brain, goes in and you get a feeling. So that's the science behind it. So when you can tap into that, you'll be guided. This is one of the things I'm big on teaching, is because just like when it comes to, like, when we have transitions to something happening in a company, or we got to present a new shift that we're going to do, again, it comes back to that feeling of knowing, like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I show? How can I make this transition? How am I going to be able to talk to this vendor? Well, instead of the hows, forget that. Just get back into, get centered. You get recentered as a leader. And all of a sudden, those ideas, or what you're going to come up with, or the thing you're going to say, when you're in that, when you know what that feeling is, you'll know when you're in alignment. And when you're in there, you're also gelling with the individual at the same time. So you're connected in some way. And what you're sharing is a response. They're resonating with that. And so this is one of those, like, and it's not easy. It seems easy, but it's not, because we've been conditioned in the world, especially Western civilization, for the last 100+ years, to start thinking with our minds and not forget this intuition stuff. Let's use the mind because it's just easier. We can just teach anybody this stuff and we can just go this route, and here we go. But now we're in a situation in the world where you see more business owners and people. So leadership, Forbes came out with a report saying leadership is people in leadership are 60% burned out. And it's all because of this mind stuff that we lead with that. So the trick is relearning, because you know how to do this. You've done this before as a kid, relearning this process. So that way that you're not trying to figure out what's this I should say, or what's this the best way to do. You'll know in the moment, and you'll be in the moment or prior to in your preparation. It can happen either way. And the beautiful thing is you're going to be able to connect and do this. And this is the same thing where, like, in the last, just in my own personal experience in my chiropractic office, I got rid of disc reports. I got rid of that. I didn't care about that much anymore. I just connected with the person. I just felt like when I knew I was connected, and when I had that feeling, I knew everything was good. And then I had a closing rate at 98%. And in my profession, that's extremely rare. And it's one of those things that people are like, how do you do it? What do you say? What's this? How do you know to approach this? What is so? And I'm like, forget all that. Like, connect with yourself and get connected and know what a feeling is when you're centered, and they're also picking up on the person's energy to know that. And speakers know how to do this.
Wait, Dr. Rick, wait, because
yeah.
I feel like I'm hearing you, but there's something that I also feel like I want to reconcile in a way that we in two very distinct points that you just brought up, and I want to give the audience the opportunity for you to describe how the two work together, right? So if a part of our goal is to get out of our heads and into our bodies, and to intuitively start to feel out people's energy, what resonates, what doesn't, but we're also looking at assessments possibly as a way of determining how to communicate with someone, what their disposition is, aren't those things sort of in opposition to one another? Like, because in essence, to use an assessment means that it is empowering you to not have to rely on intuition, because you're very clear and purposeful in the way that you're interacting with the person. You're not trying to fill them out. You have a clear idea of your personality type, their personality type. And if that benefits us in the way that we can run a business and understand who we're dealing with, then how does the intuitive part also work in that space? Because the assessment is, in essence, putting in place what intuition would not. So just give me your thoughts on that, because I heard you make the first point and I agree, and I hear the second point and I agree, but I think that there is a space where the two need reconciliation in order, I think, to be heard and for someone to understand how they connect to one another.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about vendors, that was the original point, and I don't know if you can really throw a personality test at a vendor, so you got to use some other tool. You can use a personality test with employees and stuff like that as a team and whatnot, but you don't need that. That's just one tool I shared. The
Sure.
other tool is intuition. I choose intuition. That's what I go towards.
Okay.
But as you're running a team or something along those lines, and you can use that, then go ahead and do that. I mean, that's an easier way.
Okay.
But I think a better skill set to have is just learning how to tap into that intuition. But with a vendor, you're not able to do that. So you can go, it's like, it's knowing where, so I don't want to go into that part. So I'll just leave it as intuition. So it's just knowing there's a feeling that happens and everybody has it differently. And it's just knowing when the outcome is going where you want it to go, you get a certain feeling. And then every time you're talking and speaking, you go in a certain direction. It's like I say something to somebody and I have no idea what the heck it means. I just felt like I needed to say it, or I share a story of something. And then they're like, man, that story resonated with me, man. That's what I needed to hear at that exact moment. I'm just sitting there going, yeah, I don't think that sounds great. I had no clue that was going to resonate with you, but I just felt like I needed to say that. It was coming up.
Got it.
So I hope that kind of clears it up a little bit.
Sort of. So really, what we're talking about in what I'm hearing is three really separate ideas. One is taking a analytical approach to relationship building, where there's clarity in communication and approach to style based on the median responses to any given assessment, right? So that's one thing. The other is, which one I believe in giving some form of an assessment to a vendor, ask a bunch of questions about what they stand for, what the value system is, and understand what they're posting on social media. I think everyone should get a vibe for who your vendors are, vet them through personality, through social awareness, through value system, through mission statements, do all that. I'm not saying that Dr. Vic didn't say that. I'm just saying, if you feel like you need to do your due diligence, if they really want your business, they'll take 30 minutes to fill out a very quick survey. The second thing that I hear you mentioning, though, is and this is one of three, right? So the first is an analytical approach to gaining clarity in communication and relationship. The second, which is, I think, in the middle of this spectrum, is emotional intelligence, right? Like, you have to have some level of EQ. You have to be able to read a room. You have to be able to just be in the presence of people, be an active listener, understand, when you need to input information. You should just be able to hone the skills necessary to understand what motivates and drives someone while you're engaging with them. And then the third thing that you're talking about is sort of this kind of intuition or inspired force, right? Where you don't necessarily know where this story is coming from. You don't know how it's going to resonate with someone. You don't know that this story is connected to something that may be timely and relevant in their life, but it's inspired. It comes out of you, and through that thing, you forge a connection. Is that a good way of describing sort of this spectrum of relationship building and engagement with folks?
Yeah, I think yeah, because even like you brought up the middle one, and that's something I used to do when I would speak. I'd always try to get like a little survey out there just so I could feel the vibe of what people are interested, just to get percentages. And then when I go to present, I would have those percentages and share. Here's 60% of you guys felt this way. Here's something this is way, this is this, and then it helped me be more specific to help them and what they needed. But then there came a time I've gotten better at speaking to where well, that's nice to have that analytical stuff, but But then there comes a time where when I'm speaking in front of people, you can just use the third part that we talked about too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that sums it up pretty nicely.
All right, cool, man. Because I think that emotional intelligence is oftentimes, it feels like it is the scientific way of talking about intuition, right? Like folks are like, you go into a space, you're able to understand the room, you're able to gain what are motivators, gain what are detractors, just based on your conversation, right? But then there's also, a sort of higher sense to that where, you may share a story that seemingly is disconnected from the matter at hand, but that has a deep connection or has a recent interaction for someone else, and you just didn't know that. And I think what where you see that oftentimes is in really invested, connected conversation. Tend to get in coaching. People that are spiritual tend to connect into that. And then sometimes, right, like you find that messaging is just meant for you, right? Like you're walking through a door and someone's like, man, like, what you're about to kill whatever you're going into, and you're like, man, I got an appointment, right, to get something, right, and that affirmation is the affirmation that you needed. They didn't know that and weren't aware that you needed that affirmation, but they were inspired and led to say it. And it was what you needed. So if you then receive that thing, you have now connected with that person.
100%. Yep. I totally agree with that.
Cool, man. So talk to me about your move. So you said that you moved to Knoxville, right?
Sir.
And in that move, how much of it was analytical versus kind of inspired? Like, were you just like, I want to make a move and this is where I want to go, or did you plot it out? Like that, this is a big undertaking that you went through. So what drove that change for you?
In the beginning, it was analytical because I was tired of the whole tax game in Illinois and how we're just taxed like crazy. And then, it was a couple of years of that. And my wife was just going back and forth, like, we got family here in Chicago. I don't want to, I don't know if we want to leave. And I said, it's fine. Well, if it maybe down the road. But then there came a point where it was more of like, I need to make a change. We need a big shift in our life. Something has to change. I didn't know what, didn't know how. I just felt like we needed to move. And my wife jumped on board about 2 years ago with it's almost 3 years now, with that, where she's like, yeah, I feel like we need to make a shift in our life. Just don't know why, but we have to. And I know that feeling because I've done that a gazillion times in my life where, when I chose chiropractic school, when it came to, should I practice it, go back to Chicago to practice, or, I was looking at other places originally. And, so it was kind of a blend between the two, but there was analytics in there. I'm very left brain dominant. So I'm usually like, got to have some other reasons with it. But the main one, we just felt we were coming out and visiting Knoxville, like for over a 4-year period. We probably came about 9 or 10 times. And it was one of those things every time we came, it was just a feeling. And we were just like, this feels like this is where we need to be. It may not be permanent. We knew that. We weren't feeling like this is like going to be forever home, but we knew we needed to get out of Illinois. And this was a good starting point for us to go this way. And we we just had these feelings that we knew to go that way. And yeah, man, it's been pretty sweet. We wish we did it sooner, and everything we felt has been dead on. And we've been enjoying the process since we've been here now almost a year.
Awesome. So in being multi-hyphenated, right? But also sort of having one part sort of almost lend itself to one another, right? So author, podcaster, speaker, mindset coach. And then the other side being what you were primarily known for, right? How have you been able to navigate the shift in your own life, right? Like being sort of known for one thing and then shifting into something else. means that you're also reaffirming your network. Like, hey, listen, you want someone who wants a business spiritual coach. I'm the guy to go to. Whereas maybe they sort of known you for this one thing. So how has like the shift in the way that you've approached being top of mind for your network that already knew you, not for the folks that just meeting you and meeting you for who you are now, but for the folks that have known you for a long time as it's primarily one thing, and now you've made that shift 3 years ago into a new space. How's that worked?
It's been good. The thing is, a lot of my patients, I mean, people came to me because I'm a chiropractor, and half the time they didn't want to hear mindset stuff, or, I taught a lot of mindfulness, and, again, it was a very holistic approach. So it wasn't just one thing. And, but to those who were open to it, they understood that I did talk a lot about the mind in coaching it was like I was coaching my patients in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So when I made the shift to there, a lot of them like, that makes sense. I can see you doing that because you do that with us already, don't you? And I'm like, yep, that's kind of what I do. And it was just, again, just taking it to a different level in a different sector. But I mean, I wouldn't say it was all beautiful. And, again, I only keep in touch with, a short few of percentage of people who were patients at one point. But at the same token, you're reinventing yourself in a general. And some people are gonna be like, yeah, this guy wasn't what I was coming there for. But some people are like, you know what? I remember talking to him. He was very in depth, and he had, this and that. I love to see what he's up to now, and I want to continue following him. And I would have a good following just from just people continuing that way.
Cool. So on that same note, right, for those folks who are still maybe navigating this, imagine you went from and you shifted location, industry, and due to the pandemic, the ability to see someone, right? So you had a few shifts, I would imagine, happening simultaneously, right? What was balance like for you, right? So you're shifting careers, you're shifting locations. For a time, you're shifting the way that you're engaging with your clients. How are you balancing all of that change as an individual, right? So you talked about getting out of your mind, getting into your body. How are you handling all of those changes happening around the same time, or at least what I would imagine was happening around the same time?
Yeah, I mean, my office from the chiropractic side didn't really get too affected because, I mean, chiropractors are primary care physicians, so I was able to see patients and stuff. I mean, we did take a hit and stuff, but, when you practice a lot of mindfulness for the last 15 years, things don't really get to you. You understand how to handle the chaos. I'm not saying things don't get to me at times. They do, but you practice in a way to keep your focus on where you're moving forward and looking at the forward ahead. Because, I mean, when we were before the move, I mean, we were closing an office. I was moving out of state, and my wife was pregnant. And I was getting ready to write a book. So there's 4 things going on. And it was one of those things where, and then my wife moved here in November. I didn't come down till December because I was closing the office. So I'd come back every weekend until we made the move, all of it officially. And even when those pressing times, I mean, it's just you have to do what works best for you. And for me, it's always keeping an eye on the vision and then keeping myself centered. So meditating, breath work, and all the plethora of stuff that I do.
Wait, no, pause, brother. You got to give us that. This is where the nuggets come in.
There's a long. Okay, I'll give it to you. It's long.
Yeah, you don't just look at all that stuff. This is the stuff. All right.
All right, let's do it. So yeah, I mean, meditation is my thing. That is what helps me stay centered. It neutralizes anything that I'm ever going through. I utilize breath work sometimes beforehand if things are like I'm just got a lot happening. So like at that time, I was doing breath work and then meditation right after because the breath work will balance my nervous system, and then I can go deeper into the meditation. Cryotherapy or cold exposure, things like cold plunges. At the time, I have a cold plunge now, but at the time, I was doing cold showers just to help reset my mind so that I can stay centered because I'm challenging myself. The cold is a representation of the stress I'm dealing with. So it's how I use my breath and how I keep my focus centered. So that way I can stay centered in the process. And I've been doing that for 8 years. So it's not like it's something new for me. I mean, I work out, about 4 to 5 times a week. At the time of the move, because so much was happening, I would actually work out almost 6 to 7 days a week because, excuse me, what that does for me from just a mental standpoint, just, any stress I have, I can take out, any worries or whatever, I can take it out that way. Gratitude practice is another thing I do daily in that process. So these are just, just to name a few that help me to, again, be appreciative for what's showing up, even though, like, I remember when I was moving out and my landlord slapped a massive bill on us, and I was just like, man, are you freaking kidding me? I'm like, you know what? No, it's fine. This is all going to be over with after this is done. Yeah. I'm not going to let that stress me out, because once I take care of that, I don't have to deal with this ever again. Not that I had a bad issue with them, but, it's just in really, really, refocusing my mind to stay centered as much as possible and utilizing those tools. I'm trying to think what else I do.
No. So let's dig into two of those that I think, or three rather. Breath work. Recently sort of got introduced to the idea of it, right? About conscious breathing, right? About taking in deep breaths, slowly exhaling, and how infrequently we are aware of our own breathing patterns, right? And how our breathing then affects our mood, our state of mind, how we're focused. So is that something that you go to class for? Is that something that you find at workshops? Like, if someone's listening right now, watching right now, and they're like, man, that sounds like something I want to get into, like, what are they looking for? Is that in combination with things like meditation, yoga? Is that offered in those same sort of community spaces? Or is this something separate that someone will need to kind of specifically go for?
It depends. There's so many versions of them now. There's so many that are out there. There's Wim Hof. That's probably one that you've probably heard of. And from a breath work, it's the most popular one. There's Soma breath. There's holotropic breath work. There's conscious breathing. There's square breathing. Some of these things you can just learn on YouTube. Okay. Some of them you can take a class on. There are stuff on YouTube. Like Wim Hof has a great introduction to how he does breath work, and you can just go look at the YouTube video. I know for my coaching clients and one of the foundation stuff I share with them, we go through a couple weeks of just meditation, and we go through a whole plethora of breath work, and I take them through a couple examples of breath work and meditations, just so they can, again, play with what works for them. But you can, some of these names that you can go, they have classes, they have workshops you can learn from. But like me, I've always been, in breath work. And I got exposed to breath work, pranayamas, which is the yoga term for breath work, when I was 19 years old. And then it just became, okay, well, when I got through chiropractic school, I understood the neuroscience behind why breath work works. So I was like, okay, great. What kind of breath work techniques are out there? Oh, that one does that. That's the system of how they do it. Great. I'm going to go ahead and try it out, and I'll see how I feel with it. I've even interviewed some people who've invented breath work, their own techniques. But yeah, it just varies on who you are as an individual. Some people, like a driver or someone like myself, I love just learning on my own. If I feel like I didn't get what I needed there, then I go take the workshop. Some people want to go do the class or the workshop. It doesn't mean you have to. Most of these you can find. And then YouTube has a whole inventory of these things now.
All right, cool. Meditation. Keywords right now is mindfulness meditation, right? Like, that's, folks are digging mindfulness meditation. Is there a spectrum to how one can approach meditation? And if so, what are they for the folks who might want to YouTube them?
Yeah, here's the thing about meditation. It's that you don't have to sit and meditate for 4 hours. You don't even have to sit and for 10 minutes, which is research shows is all you need. What do you do every single day? This is what I teach my clients. You can go take a walk and be in a meditative state. You can wash the dishes in a meditative state. You can work out in a meditative state. You can brush your teeth in a meditative state. You can do, because what meditation is, you have to understand what's the premise of what meditation really does. Meditation is all about increasing your focus. That's all it is. Just staying centered and focused. That's what meditation does. So what if I'm always saying you can go meditate for 10 minutes, but how about we incorporate what you do have to do? Mindful eating, right? That's a form of meditation. chew 20 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day, chew for 20 chews or whatever, 20, chew your food 20 times.
Yeah.
Mindful eating, it's, these are different principles that you can incorporate in your life. And that's something that I usually like to share with my clients a lot, to like go that route. It's the easiest route, but I am a big fan of meditation in itself. I meditate a minimum of 20, 30 minutes a day. Today I meditated twice today. I've probably meditated for over an hour today. It's one of those things where that really is important to me, but you can do the more simplistic stuff. I recommend that first, because unfortunately with our short attention span, which is only getting worse, it makes it harder for us to adapt neurologically. So neuroplasticity, or rewiring the brain, it takes us a lot longer. It almost takes us 3 months now. And so with that being said, it's very hard to meditate. People just go do a normal meditation. They're going to be very frustrated for 10 minutes. Their mind's going to be going all over the place. And they're going to realize how crazy their mind it's just flying. They're just going from one thought to the other, bouncing around. And it takes a while to adapt to that. But you can practice just chewing your food nice and slow. You can practice being mindful when you wash the dishes. Just simple things like that. Don't let your mind scatter. And if it does, just, hey, it's like a horse that's getting a little crazy. You just pull right back, get back to center, and just give yourself that opportunity. And once you can get down with that, then it opens the door and makes it easier for you to go deeper, go into meditations where you can focus or do a guided or a breath, whatever it may be.
Got it. Last one, cryotherapy. Talk to me about it. Listen, I'm from New York. I'm suspicious of everything. Is there a temperature at which you move from cold bath into cryotherapy? Talk to me about it, because I need to understand this in a more specific way. So I understand that it's beneficial. I have friends specifically more on the athlete side or the injured side where cryotherapy has worked for them. But just as a regular person, right, without any aches and pains, with that stretches regularly at the gym, what is cryotherapy going to do for me? And what's the determiner of whether this thing is successful? What am I feeling? What's typically going on? I know everyone's going to be different, but what are some of the benchmarks that says, okay, you're doing this and you're getting what you should be getting from it?
Yeah, I mean, it does have a lot of healing. It helps decrease inflammation. That's why a lot of athletes use it, and so much more. But there's other elements to it. The problem is modern world has we've become weaker from a neurological perspective, because one of the things is we control temperature, right? You can have the temperature anywhere you go now. You can control the temperature the way you want it to be. We don't get these fluctuations, so we're not challenging our nervous system. Stress makes us stronger. And so what cryotherapy does is it shocks the body, right? Now, there's a ton of health stuff. I do it more for mental things than anything else.
Yep.
But it really shocks the body, and you're going to respond to the cold the way you handle stress. That's just, it's amazing how that works. I mean, I can't tell you how many plunges. I've done over 130 of them in just the last 3 months. And every single time I hop in, I do the exact same thing. My body wants to hyperventilate. I just take really deep breaths, 10 seconds, then I'm good. There is a temperature where you want the water to get to. 66 degrees is the highest you want it to be. Research shows, they've tested it at 66 degrees for 2 minutes. You get the same benefits as anything else. But there's immune system benefits. There's mental clarity. People who had anxiety don't have anxiety anymore, because you're strengthening the nervous system. You're challenging it. It helps with weight loss, inflammation. Well, we don't know the inflammation side. Heart health benefits, helps cardiovascularly like crazy, because you're challenging the thing. Helps balance hormones. It helps with brain performance, peak performance on those things, because again, you're challenging the cardiovascular system so much, because when you hop into cold water, the body just thinks it goes into survival mode. But all these healing benefits happen when you hop out, and now your body has to self-regulate its temperature again. It's what you're stressing, and you're making it be more resistant to those type of things. And so what happens in life is you become more resistant to life. Now, if you want to go past 2 minutes to 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, I've done 40 degrees for 15 minutes, almost 12 minutes. And that's the mental strength. Now you're doing it for mental purposes. When your body's starting to get really, really cold and you can feel it, how do you mentally prepare yourself to handle that situation so you can get through it?
So it's the Polar Bear Ice Club intentionally for positive results.
Yeah, you're in New York, man. Go hop in the
I'm
ocean
telling
now. I bet you it's
you,
like 60 degrees.
listen, I was fortunate enough to go to school in the New England, so there are plenty of times that I jumped in a frozen lake. It was more to be impressive than anything, but it now that I think on it and I'm listening to your description, it took a lot of mental fortitude to just do it, right? Just to prepare yourself to do it. Then it's how your body reacted once you were submerged or plunged in the water, and then um, what it took for you in order for your body temperature to get back to a state, right? So it was almost like the stronger the person, the less you needed, the less coach you needed. You were just gonna shiver your way for a few seconds and then finally kind of get yourself there. So all right, cool. That's a good positioning. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I ask everyone on Man versus Brand 2 questions. Same 2 questions for everyone, and then I want you to give the listening and viewing audience some ways to get in contact with you, so that they can engage in your content and hopefully join you in their journey of improving their businesses and their lives. So, first question is: on any streaming platform, book or podcast, what's something that you recently engaged in, watched or read that you thoroughly enjoyed?
A book or a podcast that I read that I thoroughly enjoyed just
Or
recently
something on a streaming platform.
on a streaming platform,
Yeah.
like a Netflix or something.
Yeah. So something that's accessible. The idea is that it should be accessible to everyone so that if someone's listening or they're looking at the show notes and they want to vibe in with what you're engaging with, that they can do that.
There's a few things on streaming, but I just had a 3 month old. I have a 3 month old daughter now, so when I'm taking my time to bounce her to sleep, I watch Netflix. And what's interesting me lately, I'm watching this show called Blacklist. Never heard of it. I know it's popular, I guess. I didn't know that, but it's intrigued me because anytime you watch these criminals who are like worldwide known and masterminds, they're always very calm and collected. I know it's a movie, it's a show, but there's something to that. And I'm always looking at things like, okay, that's cool because look how calm and collective they are. They stay centered no matter what. They don't let things persuade, and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, that's how we want to be in life, business, and so forth. Always staying centered as much as we possibly can. So Blacklist has got my interest right now.
Blacklist is awesome. The and that's on Netflix, guys. I think it's at like season 9, maybe something like that. I think what's interesting though is as first James Spader is amazing, hands down. The aura, personality, the hat, all that. It's always Dembe that I'm most interested in because I think that there's something powerful in being powerful, yet relegating yourself to being supportive, right? Like, doesn't really say much until he has to say something. And when he says something, the entire room listens, right? And there's something about, while Red is telling stories of, the time that he ate, a cottage cheese in the Alps with a nice, grandmother that he met, right? Who he come to find out was an heiress. Dembe is sitting in the back, correcting him like she wasn't an heiress. She actually was a mogul. He's like, yes, you're right, right? Because that person has been there just absorbing all of the information, but very much unseen, but very much felt. So I love that show, and for all the reasons that you said. All right, so second question: any streaming platform, podcast, or book, what's something that if I ask some folks that know you, they wouldn't think that you thoroughly enjoy it, but you actually do?
A podcast, or a book, or streaming service that I enjoy that people wouldn't know.
Yeah, man. I'll give you some thoughts on what. So there's some folks that like things like true crime podcasts, like they listen to them faithfully, but like that doesn't show up in their normal life. But like that's something that like when they get time to, they listen to. So what's your thing?
Again, I'm gonna go to streaming. It's on Netflix. It's shocking when I tell people this. Not really shocking because I'm into war stuff and whatnot. But it's called The Resurrection Irtugu. It's the Turkish about the Ottoman Empire, and it's gonna take you a while. But let me just put it this way: I've been watching it over the last 4.5 years, and I just barely got through season 4. Now I don't watch it as often, but it's because when you watch it, it's kind of like I don't know what their budget was. The same music plays the same time, all this other stuff. But but again, it's the reason I loved it so much, and I continue to watch it. And when I tell people this, they're like, "What do you watch?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's Turkish something something." I'm like, "You're into that stuff?" Like I'm like, "Well, it's kind of cool." I go again. What can I learn from that? Right. And there's values that they share. There's codes that they live by. There's things just like Red and Blacklist. He has this moral compass that he lives by. So even though he's this top criminal, he's also, but he takes care of people.
Yeah.
Like Demby and so forth. I remember I'm only on season 2, so I'm way, way behind. Yeah. But Irtugu is another one. I talk to people like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, check it out. You'll see what I mean. And then of course nobody follows me up on it.
So my aunt is, and I am to an extent, very much into like period pieces, specifically like things that are historically accurate. And she is very much into like the Asian historical reenactment sort of stuff. And man, it'd be like season 1, episode 138. And I'm like, where are you at? I'm like, I'm on episode 5. She's like, I'm on 246. Catch up. I'm like, I don't even understand how, right? But those things, it's interesting, just how much content you really can get out of exploring history, if it's really done well, right? If it's done well and you're not trying to skip steps and you're committed to telling aspects of the story, sides of the stories, perspectives of the story, then you can get a lot of it, man, because I'm telling you, them things, those episodes, man, this guy isn't telling any tales. Those things run, and they run long, and clearly there's budget for them. Clearly there's an audience for them. Otherwise, they just wouldn't exist in the same way. And so, yeah, man. All right, cool. So those will be in the show notes. So I'll make sure to have links for them. So talk to the audience, man. Let them know. I want to get in contact with Dr. Vic. I want to see what he's putting out there. Talk to me about the pod. Talk to me about book. All that stuff will also be in the show notes. But just give a shout out to yourself, right? Yeah. How are people getting engaged with you?
Easiest way to find all that stuff is on my website, empoweryourreality.com. You can find my website on there. I got some free resources and so forth. Social media stuff's on the bottom left corner. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So I post stuff about every 4 to 5 times a week. And, and you can, any questions you have, I always like to hear from people. My books are on 40 something online retailers, but the main popular one is Amazon. I have it in ebook. I have it on, or Kindle, audiobook and paperback. So that's where you can find my books. You can find me and all that I'm up to.
And are you the narrator for your audiobook?
Yes. So I just a fair warning, since you brought that up. If you like to speed up on your normal audiobooks, you're going to probably want to slow it down a little bit from mine, because I talk a little faster than the norm, as you can tell.
Got it. Well, listen. This is for the person that's on the go, that needs to get the information, that needs to get it now, and needs to get it timely. All right, so guys, I'm Dion Brown. That is Dr. Vic Manzo. We both appreciate you for listening, for joining us, for watching. Please take the time to head over. Make sure that you power your reality. Join this guy on his venture. Listen, I learned things about anxiety, about business practice, and I think some pretty awesome things about life. I'm Dion Brown. That's Dr. Vic. This is Man versus Brand. Love you all. Talk to you soon.